Between the 1830s and the 1920s, a generation of American activists operated as social engineers. They aimed to construct a morally and operationally flawless society, a project that went far beyond typical legislative reform. This ambition was a response to a country in flux. Rapid industrial growth was pulling the United States into a new era of urban sprawl, creating dense city centers and deep class divides. Satirical illustrations from the time show what these reformers were up against, a political system defined by graft. They viewed the influence of lobbyists and corrupt committees as the primary rot preventing social progress. We remember this period for its massive shifts in labor and civil rights, but the reformers' absolute certainty in their own moral blueprints often triggered consequences they never saw coming. To understand the roots of modern American policy, we have to look past the reformers' intentions and examine the specific friction that occurred when their ideals met the messy reality of human behavior. Many activists viewed the early 19th century United States as a Republic of Drunkenness. To them, the path to a perfect society required the total eradication of alcohol to save the national soul. Their persistence eventually led to a total legislative overhaul. By 1920, the 18th Amendment had banned the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquors nationwide. Enforcing this new moral standard meant the physical destruction of the industry. Law enforcement and activists used axes to break open barrels, literally pouring millions of gallons of product into the gutters. However, the demand for alcohol did not disappear. Prohibition instead created a massive black market, providing a financial engine for organized crime and leading to widespread public disregard for the law. By leading with paternalism, reformers failed to account for human desire. What began as a plan to improve public health ended up creating a new nationwide crisis of public safety. On the factory floor, perfection meant efficiency. Progressive managers adopted Taylorism, a philosophy designed to maximize every second of labor and eliminate any trace of industrial waste. This approach professionalized the assembly line. By standardizing every movement, manufacturers achieved a level of industrial output that was previously impossible. But the logic of the stopwatch also stripped workers of their autonomy. Laborers were forced into highly repetitive, dehumanizing tasks where every action was dictated by a manager's script. This loss of control sparked a massive backlash. Resenting the rigid authority of management, workers across the country organized strikes that ground these supposedly optimized factories to a halt. These labor disputes demonstrated a clear limit to industrial logic. Treating people like interchangeable components created a level of psychological friction that eventually offset the gains in speed and efficiency. In urban centers, reformers like Jane Addams addressed the human cost of industrialization. Their settlement houses provided direct aid, medical care, and education to those living in the city's poorest neighborhoods. These activists also led the charge for political inclusion. Their work was the driving force behind the 19th Amendment, which finally secured voting rights for women. High-profile industrial tragedies further fueled their cause. Outrage over preventable deaths led to the first mandatory workplace safety standards and the eventual prohibition of child labor. But even these successes were often framed by a sense of moral superiority. Middle-class reformers frequently viewed themselves as divinely empowered to dictate how immigrant and native populations should conduct their daily lives. While these movements built the foundation for the modern social safety net, this top-down approach created a lasting cultural tension between the reformers and the communities they intended to help. The legacy of these early American reformers is a story of contradictions. Their era produced both the blueprints for modern civil rights and some of history's most visible social miscalculations. Victories like women's suffrage succeeded because they expanded the reach of democracy. Securing the 19th Amendment redefined the American electorate, integrating millions of new voices into the political process. Those lasting achievements stand in contrast to experiments like Prohibition. By trying to force a specific moral behavior, reformers inadvertently catalyzed new forms of crime and social instability. These historical cases highlight a recurring tension. They show the persistent friction that occurs when the rigid designs of social engineers meet the unpredictable and diverse behaviors of the people they aim to organize. Ultimately, these decades proved lasting change requires dealing with society exactly as it is, rather than forcing human nature into a preconceived, visionary mold.